Welcome to Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Chuck, and this is The Thunder Show. You can't, keep a good man down, and that saying and that start to the show has to start. And I'm going to get right into a rant, first and foremost, before we get into the ever so exciting sherry episode, which is going to bore me and you together. I want to make one little quick rant. I am so tired of the emails that I'm getting back and forth, and I've got to step on my little soapbox real quick on the quickness on this one. Can we get over the fact that when you try a wine type or producer, that is your judgment for the rest of your life on that product? I mean, geez, the first time you kissed, it might have not been that good. Do you want to stop kissing? Maybe the first time you ate food, you didn't like it. Did you stop eating? I mean, maybe the first human being you met wasn't that great or chappy. Do you hate humans? And what is happening is completely ruffling my feathers because people are saying to me things like, oh, I tried a dolcetto once, it stunk, I hate them. One! Complete joke. Can we at least get to the 6 to 10 time trying different producers, different vintages of a grape varietal before we classify it as something we do not enjoy? Please? Makes no sense. And that's what's broken with the wine industry. That and following ratings and not trusting your own palate and letting somebody boss you around and thinking every wine from a vintage. The vintage is my favorite thing. Oh, 2000 Napa's horrible. There was hundreds of good wines. So, open your mind, live it like a great life. Live a great life in your wine world. If you're not doing it in your real life world, at least do it in the wine world. And don't make a statement or a granted set in stone theory on a wine based on one single bottle. Please. Number 2, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but Tom Brady, quarterback of the New England Patriots, son was born, and name is John Edward Thomas. J-E-T. I see a conspiracy theory here. I'm not sure exactly what this means. Is Tom Brady going to be the future quarterback of the New York Jets? Probably not, because I hate him, and not because he's dating Giselle. And so really, my real question is, why with that? What's up with that name mod? I'm confused. Maybe it means the Jets are going to rock the Patriots twice. Again, doubt it. I think they're going 15-1, and that's just my little fun fact for the hour. I'm perplexed, angered, shocked, curious, and very much paying a lot of attention to the naming of that boy. And so we'll be analyzing that as the football season goes along. I've got to give a huge shout out to Amara. Happy birthday from your boy K Squared. Big shout out. You're a huge lurker. And that's today's question of the day. How many lurkers do you know? It's time to see some numbers in the comments section. And Brandon M., behave yourself. Yesterday's display was intriguing and profound, but let's hope it's a one-time thing. Sherry goes way back. Probably one of the most confusing places in the world for wine. Probably one of the most undervalued wines in the world. When you hear about how labor-intensive these wines are, you're going to be shocked to find out these are wines that come in at $9 to $15 a bottle. I'm confused by sherry. Everybody's confused by sherry. Sherry is very different, very interesting wines, but when you tame that tiger, you are absolutely getting some of the best dessert wine or dry wine values in the entire human world. And so I'm very excited about proposing this episode to you, and that's what I will be doing. Sherry goes way back. I mean, we're talking about 1100 BC. So, it really took a turn in 711, which is kind of intriguing. 711, it's kind of funny. Maybe that's when it became popular to use that term. Anyway, 711, the Egyptians, I believe, came into that part of Spain, renamed the town to Xeres or something of that nature. Now, Jerez, which is the main town of sherry now, was translated in English to sherry. That's just one of those things. So if you're ever wondering what Jerez means on the label, it means sherry. It's really an interesting place because it's so marred in tradition. I mean, the casks and the Solera system go back to the 1400s. So they're really cemented in tradition, but they really can't charge a lot for their product because the demand is low. It's very labor intensive. I'm going to explain to you the Solera system of how sherries are produced, and boy, it gets very confusing. And so we're going to get into it in a quick second. About 19.8 million gallons of sherry are made every year. Most of sherry is coming from 3 main grapes of Palomino, which is the real predominant grape of the area, Muscatel, and Pedro Jimenez, which is a dessert wine style. So those are the 3 predominant grapes. And then you've got the whole really two separate schools of sherry. You've got the Fino, which are lighter, and you've got the Oloroso, which are darker. And that's really the two camps that sherry fall into. And then you've got classifications within them, like, like pale, and then you've got this good one, which is the Amontillado, and then you've got the Oloroso, which is a dark, and then within Oloroso it could be cream. That's where you get your cream sherries from. So there's all these classifications, and I could really go into them, and I probably won't because it gets a little bit boring of, the Oloroso and the Amontillado and the Pedro Jimenez and the Manzanillas, and they get, those are definitely things that should be left for somebody who's a much better teacher than I am, Mont. Let's not get crazy, but I will give you the basics, and let's start off at the low end of the scale. Again, now this is produced by Alvear. This is their Fino. Now, Fino is a pale straw type collared, entry level dry light sherry. Now, sherries are wines that are fortified, meaning when they used to ship them in these huge casks to Europe, other parts of Europe, and to America even later on, they would have to fortify the wine so that it wouldn't spoil. So there's about 15% brandy in these wines, alcohol. So that's where you get like the alcohol concept. That's where you get, the smell. When you smell it, it really smells like liquor. So the real interesting thing about these wines are they are all fortified with a brandy. So you're going to get much more alcoholic type wines, which bother some people and appease others. This is why you think of sherry as kind of like the drunk, the winos, back in the 70s and 60s, in the brown paper bag, many times is that Hartley and James and Savory and James and all these different Hartley and Gibson brands of sherry, the inexpensive sherry. So sherry's made a resurgence in the mid-90s. Over the course in the 70s, it was almost completely wiped out. I mean, the demand and not being really a financially viable project, the only reason it is because labor is so inexpensive in this part of Spain that they're really able to get away with it. And you're usually able to get away with anything if you're paying people like a nickel, and that's really the business model here. This wine is $9 and received 90 points Stephen Tanzer. And the resurgence of sherry in America has come from Tanzer, Parker, and a couple other people because these wines get such great scores for $8 or $9, and that makes people want to at least explore them. So let's get into the first one. Again, we've got the Fino and we've got the Oloroso camps. Those are the two camps. The Finos are the lighter entry-level style. Most sherries are fortified in a 5-year process. So it's a really, it takes forever for it to be produced. It really is quite an interesting little thing. Very, very light in its approach. Let's give a little bit of a sniffy sniff. Now, the real difference in camp, as I smell this intriguing wine, between the Finos and the Olorosos is that, can we get the mics down? I know this is like off-the-cuff stuff, but at least maybe I want the peeps to hear me. The Finos and the Olorosos, the real two difference is that Finos have like a floor when they ferment. Floor is a type of yeast that goes on top of the barrels, and it's formed after fermentation. Keeps it a little bit lighter and gives it its profile, whereas Olorosos don't have that floor, that yeast, and they become darker and heavier types of sherries. Let's give us a little bit of a tasty taste. The smell has got a little bit of like makes me think of like pecan, rum, raisin ice cream. So actually rum raisin, right? Rum raisin. This is like a rum raisin ice cream component on the nose. There's some grassiness and grainness to it as well, but you are definitely getting that like shot of bourbon. It's like, the hair in the chest is coming out when you smell this stuff. Marlon Harris, 203. Marlon, 203. So this is extremely dry, has really nice acidity, has like a pale lemon peel kind of component. Hit speaker, and then speaker bottom right, and then hit it, and now hit, nope, above it, yeah, there you go, and you're good. This is an awkward show today. Tomorrow's the big announcement, so we're all a little jumpy and jittery, and excited about tomorrow's huge announcement. You know, it has like a little bit of a lemon peel kind of component to it, like a little bit of a burnt rubber comes to mind. This is something that you definitely feel like somebody's pounding on the corner, but it's got a charm to it. And the butterscotch caramel flavors that last after that initial attack and alcoholic bourbon type flavor that attacks your palate are nothing short of remarkable. They're delicious. They're beautiful. I get peanut aspect on the finish as well. It's got a beautiful clarity to this wine. I like this wine. Again, it's interesting. This is not a dessert wine. Many people think sherries are sweet. This is not sweet. This is really quite dry. Might just be a little too alcoholic for most people, but if you can handle the heat, then you can stay in the kitchen and enjoy this wine. $9, very solid. I'm more of the camp of this is an 86-point wine. I think the answer's way too high in this, but a very good entry. And if you're looking for something with a little punch, then this may be the way to go for 9 bones. Interesting stuff. Using different glasses today, just in the mood. This is the Pedro Romero Amontillado Dry Rich Fino. Now this wine is 90 points Parker, $8 US. Now Amontillado is really aged Fino, and the alcohol content shoots up a little bit. So this is 18%, and you can see there's no floor on this. So when the floor kind of goes away, you get a much darker color. So the real fun part about this is, folks, we're gonna get more confused than before. A Fino and an Amontillado and Manzanilla, which is not here. Manzanilla are all the same grape. So it's quite interesting. All the same wine, just a different classification. As you can see, this is a much darker, rubier, almost orange-esque color component to this sherry. 8 bones. Again, let's give it a little bit of a sniffy sniff. Now this is a lot more nutty than the last wine. This has more of a walnut component coming through on the nose. Also a little bit of a... God, I really get the rum. It's like nutty walnut rum coming through. Let's give it a whirl. And so what you're getting here more is a taffy-esque kind of wine. This is obviously a more acidic wine, higher in alcohol, 18%. Bone dry again, but definitely a caramel, coffee, taffy-esque flavor lingering on the finish. It's got more body, and you can do that more with the wine. And come on, isn't that worth it? It's $1 less than the Alvear. It's a different producer. 90 points Parker. I just don't see it. I'm not as high on this. I'm going to go 88 points. Because there is a really nice Nutella kind of nutty, you know what? Almost has a Baby Ruth kind of component with butterscotch poured over your Baby Ruth. So it sounds delicious, but then it's dry and alcoholic. So it's really like taking a Baby Ruth that you poured butterscotch and caramel on, bit it, and then took a good old shot of a whiskey, really, of a cheap whiskey. And so there's that whole component going on with this. Again, the nuttiness is beautiful. I mean, I really taste flat out right now. I only taste nuts in my mouth right now. And it's really one of those things. Do you like nuts in your mouth? Do you not? It really matters to the style of flavors you prefer in your palate. For me, this is a solid little wine, but nothing to get obscenely crazy about. But once again, I think there's a lot of people that need to discover sherry because I think you're going to get a lot of flavors that you've never experienced in wine before. And really, that's what wine's all about. Pedro Romero again, dry Oloroso sherry, full dry. This wine is $8 US, 88 points Robert Parker. Now the Olorosos are wines that are going to be drier, 18% alcohol content. Again, you can see it's going to have this color thing going on, this little orange, burnt orange kind of color component to it. Let's give it a little bit of a smell. Now this almost has like a Campbell's tomato soup component coming on the first attack. It's very vegetable. It really reminds me of couple noodle. Like what's a couple? The soup, right? It's got like a weird little oodles and noodles. Thank you, Mott. Again, a burnt rubber tire component coming through on this nose as well, mixed in with that caramel butterscotch. I mean, this is really a fascinating whirl through wines that are giving you industrial smells. I mean, when I smell these wines, it really does make me think of like the car factory or some of the factories in Edison, New Jersey, where car parts and tires and railroad tracks. And again, it's kind of flirting you with nuts and butterscotch and caramel. So very intriguing, different kinds of wines. Very obvious to me why a lot of people don't drink these wines, because I don't find a lot of palates in this direction these days. Let's give it a little bit of a whirl. Now, this has a little more character to it. A little more zing for your buck. A lot more feel on the palate. A heavier wine, a little bit more complete. Again, dry, not sweet in any shape or form. But this Oloroso I'm feeling it. Again, remember, it's a Palomino grape, or Muscatel, mainly Palomino, 90% or so in that range, usually in these wines. This has more character. I'm feeling this wine a lot more. I like the dryness. I like the complexity. I get a second layer of flavor on this wine. Now, that layer is dry t-shirt, but it's something that I'm feeling, meaning this has like a cloth kind of component. Like if you've ever really just lick your shirt right now. There's something to it on this wine. Again, nuttiness is obvious. They all share the common component of walnuts, hazelnut, butterscotch, and caramel. That is just like the overall theme of these wines, but not sweet and kind of balanced out with an alcoholic liquor, like a whiskey or a bourbon-esque kind of feel to it. It's really a really fine balance of the flavors that are going on in your palate. Very, very different kind of stuff. I'm feeling this out of the whole bunch. I'm going to score this 88 plus. I like this, and I can see myself drinking this, really. These wines, in my opinion, are made for cheese. Given the flavors, cheese matching up with sherry, I think is a perfect pairing. Really, I'm going to do another episode on sherry in the future. We'll get a little more detailed. I think this broad might be a little too broad, and we'll really team them up with cheese. Now, this is the Alvear. This is the cream sherry, which is Oloroso, but added in the Pedro Jimenez grape to make it sweet and fuller. Normally running in around 20% alcohol content. This wine's 91 points, Parker, $10 US. This one's 18% alcohol. Again, they get up as high as 20. And you can see on the pour, right off the bat, it's more viscous, it's heavier, and I'm excited about this. This might be more towards the sweet dessert style that I think so many people are into. Darker, this is more on the brown side now. Brownish orange, unlike the other two that were orange, and the first one that was like a pale straw color. Let's give it a little bit of a swirl. Let's get into this. Sniffy sniff time. Once again, the distinctions on the nose are very subtle. This one has probably the most alcoholic attack on the nose. Really does have that rum-esque kind of quality to it. I'm not sure if it's the color that's making me think that, or just the smell because it smells like rum. Does lack of coconut replace that with nuts, and that's exactly what this smells like. Let's give it a whirl. Now, this is going to be the style most people enjoy. Because of the Pedro Jimenez grape, this has sweetness to it. The sweetness kind of rounds out, starts making it port-like. Not exactly like port, but this sherry is clearly a wine that has beautiful flavors of caramel. I mean, really, once again, the characteristics are so similar. It's caramel and butterscotch, but this time it tastes like that because the sweetness component is in the mix. It's got good structure, good body. I like this wine. Listen, sugar is going to always trick us. It's like a little skin. It's going to trick you. Or the high stockings. That used to always get me. It's going to trick you. So this is the kind of wine that I know a lot of people are going to rate higher because of the sugar content is going to seduce them. 91 Parker. I'm going to go 89 points because I'm not going to fall for it this time, Sherry. It's a nice little drink, and again, the creams and the extra cream, those are, and the Pedro Jimenez when it's on the label itself, those are the kind of wines that are going to bring a sweetness factor to the sherries that I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy. All in all, sherries are a very different kind of animal, but I think are very underpriced. There's dessert wines that taste like this that from different parts of the world, and nothing really is quite as distinct as sherry, but other dessert wines of this kind of quality, mouthfeel, structure, sweetness, complexity, and flavor, they're going to run you so much more. This is $10 for $7.50, $5 a half bottle. There are plenty of uninspiring sauternes that are $30 a half bottle that don't bring as much charismatic interest and flavor, and it's totally different flavor. I mean, if you're a fan of the nutty kind of flavors and the butterscotch and the caramel, there are not wines out there that are more in line with you than this. And if you're looking for the sweetness, then look for the cream sherries or the Pedro Jimenez's, because they're going to be great values and wines that are going to really strike your palate. Once again, I'm not sure that there is not a better wine in the world than sherry. I don't think anybody can match up with cheese the way these wines can, and that makes me very interested because I'm a huge cheese fan. What I love about this category, again, is this entire investment is $40. Less than a lot of wines that we put on the show just by a bottle. So your price of acquisition to explore and learn is at such a minimal level. The alcohol content is high, so if you're depressed and you're not happy that you hate these wines, you can pound the bottle and go to schluffy schluff, sleep time. So, there's really a lot of different ways to play the sherry game, and I will definitely say that for me, stylistically, not super up my alley. As they get to the dessert wine form, a little bit more up my alley, but definitely a wine that's worth exploring. There's a lot to learn about sherry, the classifications that we're going through. But once you kind of get in there, really, you don't need to learn that much about wine other than I like and I don't like. If you ever learn anything about WLTV, that's all I care about. Like, no like. And for me, no like, like. And so that's what it's all about. So you don't need to nerd it up. This might have been an episode for Sir Gary Vaynerchuk, but, I kind of wanted to do it for you. Other than that, big day tomorrow. Big day. I will talk about the Solera process in the future because I want to bring out wines that have the vintages. Let me just mention this one thing. You may see sherry dessert wines that say 1927, 1894, 1951 on them. They're not from that year. We'll explain the Solera concept. It's very interesting. I'm going to do a separate show on that hopefully very shortly. Big day tomorrow. Today was supposed to be the big day. Pretty interesting. Other than that, just want to thank everybody who's been emailing and commenting. Big thanks to everybody who digs the episodes. That means a whole lot to me. It's always good to get good new Vaniacs from the Dig Nation. As a matter of fact, you know what? Speaking of Dig Nation, my good friend Kevin Rose at Dig Nation, super web famous, way more web famous than I am, did a little Gary Vaynerchuk-esque kind of thing in the beginning of Dig Nation. It is the most watched podcast on the internet. Mott, let's link it up. They are going to be, I think you're going to like the first couple of minutes. Pretty interesting. And if you're in technology, you're definitely going to like it. Other than that, a little rambling action, just trying to get the numbers up. I want to make sure it's a nice long episode so everybody can complain. Question of the day, I already did. How many lurkers do you know? You, with a little bit of me, we're changing the wine world, whether you like it or not.